Welcome to the DeFi Standard. This is Patty XRP, and with me I got.
Mickey B. Fresh.
How's it going, Mickey?
It's going good. We got some news today. Uh, Ripple X invested in Mintable, which is part of Mark Cuban's portfolio with the NFTs. So that was pretty interesting to see them expanding the NFT marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. So around this partnership that's going on, basically in the Ripple X blog, they talk about in 2020, consumers spent 54 billion on NFTs. I think a lot of us saw all the craziness going on with NFTs, and I would almost liken that to the whole meme token rise that we saw this spring as well. A lot of money being spent on just kind of digital art and things like that, but we're definitely not at the point, Mickey, I'd say with the NFTs where, some of the I guess I would say better use cases. I don't know if better is the right word, but just, higher dollar use cases have not been hit with that industry yet for sure. So it's still
Yeah,
very
no,
new. Yeah.
yeah, it's still a very nascent market. I mean, it's really just beginning. I mean, 2020 was just the first year of anything really with NFTs. And before that was what? CryptoKitties, maybe in 2017. And that
Yeah.
was it, really. I mean, this is really new. What could be made with these NFTs is still unexplored. I mean, I do think digital art, collectibles, and some memorabilia are going to be some of the first use cases. But I think we'll see more in the future with these. And we're just kind of at the beginning.
Yeah.
So with gaming, I think is going to be definitely a big one with the gaming and the whole metaverse. So that's kind of what Flair's doing over there. And now you see like Ripple X investing into it. I mean, I think it's safe to say it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. And it'll evolve past the form it's at right now, just like crypto needs to keep evolving. For me, anything where you purchase to own something that's hosted on a centralized server, that's going to be prime to possibly, be tokenized in the future. So, you can think about, oh, like you have a PlayStation or an Xbox and you buy all these movies or whatever off of their like app store basically, and you're just sitting there, and one day they for whatever reason ban your account, and sometimes people unfairly get their accounts banned and stuff like that, and you may lose access to those. Or like, what if PlayStation, or I guess Sony or Microsoft, like, as unlikely as it seems, if they went under, and people's entire libraries that they could have spent thousands of dollars on movies could completely go away. So like, to me, that's a big thing. Owning games, like, right now, you don't see discs sold as often, but you see these digital forms of games that people are buying, that you just like solely, it's located in the centralized server of whatever PlayStation, Sony, their app store, Xbox. And, if that's taken away from you, there's not much recourse you have. But if you were to turn something like that into an NFT, now I think like being able to resell digital games, you could rent out a digital game to somebody. Like, let's say you buy the new Call of Duty, and there's people that want to try out your like certification ID around owning the game. Well, you could rent it out to somebody in the future. So, I think it opens up a lot more use cases, and there's plenty more on top of that. I mean, just think of music, that whole industry, how much troubles it's gone through from the early stages of when Napster came around, and artists finding ways to get paid, when there's just seemingly endless music content out there. So, how do you make yourself stand out from other people? And I think selling NFTs from like a musical artist perspective of your songs and giving people the right to use them in their production is like something that I would very much be interested in seeing growing. I don't know if there's other industries you would want to hit on, Mickey, as far as NFTs for the future.
Well, nice is with the royalties so that
Yeah.
the creator of that could continuously earn those royalties. So as it that song or actual digital art is sold from owner to owner, they'll still get those royalties on every sale. So I think that's one thing that's really cool with the NFTs. It adds to, so creators in general, I would say digital art, say it be music, say it be gaming, will be able to have a bigger platform to market their content to. So I think that will be big in the future. I mean, there are other markets we could see with this, like letters of credit, for example, in supply trade and trade finance. So you could see those digitized into NFTs. We could see identities possibly into NFTs too in the future. So there
Medical
are other
records.
absolutely, definitely with medical records. That's a big one too.
Yeah. That so, like, before I worked in, like, healthcare consulting, and dealing with medical records was, one of the biggest pains out there, because you have so much, regulatory compliance you have to follow around PHI, which is public health information, and then, like, the HIPAA guidelines, that the healthcare industry is probably slower moving than even the banking industry, I would say. So, there's, like, a lot of space, to be improved there. And I know there's a few firms out there kind of trying to work on that tokenizing of medical records. So, yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that goes in with medical records that we'll get into next is zero knowledge proofs. So the way to be able to verify things without actually not knowing all the details, but being able to verify that it's that patient without having to see their birthday, their social security number, their address, plays into the whole zero knowledge proofs. And Panther Protocol is a recent project that partnered with Flare Networks. And Patty did a little dive into the white paper this morning. So you want to tell us what you found out about Panther Protocol here?
Yeah, so I'll keep this more of a kind of brief intro into it, because I do want to put together a longer form video covering everything. But basically, Panther Protocol is going to be tackling DeFi privacy. It's going to be multi chain, and the first, what they call peer chain that they're going to launch on, will be Ethereum in Q3. So, within the next 3 months, they'll be launching. They have a huge team behind it. It's over like 20 people at this point. And the two guys heading it, Oliver Gale and Anish Muhammad, they have they've been in the industry for a long time. Anish Muhammad's been on like 12 major projects, including advising Ripple for 5 years from 2013 to 2018. He also assisted in the Ethereum white paper as well. And then Oliver Gale, the CEO, is the founder of the firm that created the Sand Dollar CBDC for the Bahamas, which is the first ever CBDC that has been created in the entire world. So those two definitely have the background to put something together. We'll see how this project comes along. There's going to be a public sale in Q3. I checked in with them today just to see if there was any more information about where that's going to be and how open it will be to everybody. They said they can't comment at this point, but they will give some time heads up before it goes live. So I'll be keeping people posted if that's something they're interested in. And full disclosure, obviously not financial advice, but I am looking to possibly purchase their native token, which is called the Panther token. So I just wanted to let everybody know, like, if I'm covering it, I'm definitely interested in it at this point, but definitely do your own research. In the video coming out later, I'll link in the white paper and other relevant information. And we also have a video that covered them from back in May, kind of going over, what is the team, what are their use cases and everything. But essentially, institutions and businesses and maybe high net worth individuals have this issue where they don't necessarily want to see all their transactions be public record. They would like for some way, to have some privacy. And I think a lot of us would like the ability to have privacy. So, like, you know, kind of how, let's say you go to a yard sale today, you can go and exchange cash for some item, and there's no recording of that, unless you can go back in time and stuff like that to go, physically watch what happened. You'll be able to do the same thing, but with cryptocurrency. So, like, they'll create, like, basically phantom, I don't know if it's what they call them, phantom addresses or whatever, but you can go onto their protocol, and it'll basically tell two parties these new addresses they can send to, and you're the only two that know about them. So that helps keep it like private. So you could do like a P2P transaction over the blockchain in a private manner. It also gives you the ability to do selective KYC and AML, which I think is pretty powerful. So, while it doesn't give you, complete privacy, in everything you do, you at least get to choose what entities that you're going to interact with and then disclose information to. So for me, that's at least a better step than where we are now, where, blockchains are pseudo anonymous. And if you ever had one, kind of slip up, if you didn't want your identity to be known and somehow it got linked to some kind of personally identifiable information, this can, help like deter that in the future. And I'm just excited about it. It's definitely an area that is ripe for having some innovation in it. And I think it's something that institutions definitely want to see because, I mean, they have regulations and stuff like they can't have, their clients' information being disclosed and all that stuff with every transaction. So I just think this is a lot of help in that regard.
Yeah, so I think this is the next iteration of like privacy. We've seen, the Moneros and what's the other one,
Zcash,
the Zcash
yeah.
out there that are trying to do privacy, and these, regulatory bodies like, oh, we can't have any private transactions, but at the same time, to the banks and all these institutions going to want to have fully public and transparent. It's like, okay, we need to have a balance of privacy with transparency, and what like zero knowledge proofs allows, it allows for that privacy with transparency, which are usually at the opposite ends of the spectrum. Usually, if you have privacy, then you don't have transparency. And if you have transparency, you don't have privacy. So by bringing the two together is kind of what zero knowledge proofs allows. And I think that's going to be a powerful tool in the future going forward, especially for medical records. So you could verify that these things are authentic and that's really that medical record. But at the same time, you don't need to see all the information on there. And that could apply to transactions and many other use cases in crypto and in blockchain in general. So that's going to be huge in the future. And with
Absolutely.
CBDCs, I mean, you think like for all these different use cases coming in the future, and this is why I say CBDCs are not coming this year or next year. I think they're still a little ways away because there's all these new technologies like zero knowledge proofs, like smart programs, smart contracts, and other technology, AI, that are going to come in and be mixed as part of these CBDCs. And we're just not there yet. So digitizing fiat is just not going to cut it. And the world doesn't really need that yet. So sorry to go off too much on the CBDC discussion, but I just think it's just the most probably hyped up, distracting part of the whole crypto market right now. It's the biggest distraction.
Yeah, I will add on with Panther Protocol since they do have that CBDC experience from the past. They are going to be, implementing privacy solutions if CBDCs are issued on public ledgers, and they will be interoperable with the protocol so that you could actually utilize a CBDC with some privacy behind it on a public blockchain. Now, obviously, like if some country, like let's just say, I don't know, Singapore or something, were to issue their CBDC on, an XRP Ledger sidechain, like more than likely that's going to be private in the beginning and they're going to have full control over it. We'll have to see how that plays out with them. And like Mickey's saying, we definitely have a long, long road ahead of us when it comes to CBDCs. I know people are like, when the Fed was coming out and talking about it for the first time in maybe 2019, and they're like, oh, yeah, 2024 is like maybe when we'll have a digital dollar. I'm like, I mean, every day passes. I feel like that's more likely. Originally people were like, oh, the US isn't that behind, but, I think they are. And the bigger a bureaucracy gets, the slower moving it's going to be. So that's just kind of the nature of things at this point. And the
Yeah,
US government is a very slow moving entity.
well, it's that, but also accepting that this is now programmable money and it's not the same. It's not, we could just digitize this money, throw it up, put it on a centralized, blockchain and call it a day and that's it. And this is going to be good for the next 10 years. No, that's the problem is they're going to have to realize that this money is programmable, that the monetary system is going to have to change along with these CBDCs, and just doing all these pilots, they're going to realize more and more. And we heard it from, I think there was a RippleX presentation in the fall that showed that Singapore, who's done the 5 different Project Ubins, realized like, whoa, we have smart contracts here. We could program this money. We could do all different types of things with it, and they realized, wait, maybe we're not going to go jump too fast just to digitize this because that doesn't do anything. But the BIS, they're going to do tests for years and years. A couple of small central banks like Bermuda and Marshall Islands, and maybe a couple others will do it in the meantime. But I think 2024 is absolutely, probably on scale when we'll probably see some type of initial rollout even. So I just wouldn't get too tied away in those, tied up in the whole CBDC and the BIS thing. I think it's a lot of noise and it's really distracting from what the real innovation is. Central banks don't lead the way in innovation. So I wouldn't be looking to the central banks. I would be looking to the private sector where all the investment opportunities are and all the new innovation is taking place. But we have this distraction going on, like thinking like the Treasury and CBDCs, and we're going to have buybacks of XRP. Like it's just all noise and distractions from what the real focus should be in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on to that, like, I mean, I could care less about CBDCs. I don't really intend on using them any more than I would use the current, machination of the US dollar. So to me, it's just kind of like, if they're here, we'll see what happens with them. But I don't think it's going to offer anything like really cool for retail users or anything like that. To me, assets issued on public decentralized like permissionless censorship resistant ledgers is always going to trump anything that the government's putting out that is controlled. So yeah, we'll see how that evolves. But definitely, I mean, as far as Panther Protocol goes, the fact that they can accommodate privacy with CBDCs is a good thing because, I mean, I think we'll see at least some of them in the future, in what form they come in. It's just like, yeah, like we talk about KYC AML stuff. I'm like, do I really like KYC AML and all? Do I really think it's like that needed? I'd probably say no, but it's something that's out there and it's probably not going away. So, we got to like take that into consideration when we're looking at stuff, right?
No,
Um,
you're absolutely right. Digital identity and digital identity. Speaking of that, right now, that's going to be huge going forward with DeFi and all these different exchanges. We're going to have self-sovereign digital identity, and that's something that's going to be part of these CBDCs too. And it's just something in the future that we're going to see. So I would be prepared for that. And the travel rule is another thing. Speaking of KYC AML,
yeah,
that's
FATF.
coming. It's the FATF. It's been delayed till October. So it is coming. It's just not here yet, but expect that. And that's, remember, KYC AML, it's just a basic KYC AML to make sure that everyone who's participating in that, say, liquidity pool or that application is KYC'd and they're not with like some, you know, country that's on a sanction list or a other type of blacklist.
Cool. Let's see. Adam Cobb has a question here, and I'll leave this one for you, Mickey. But he said, "What can the Ethereum virtual machine smart contracts do that, like, so he says XRP or Algo's inherent smart contracts can't do? Well, XRP doesn't have any at this point, but can you expand on like a Ethereum virtual machine versus some of the other smart contract languages out there?
Sure. So
Yeah.
Ethereum virtual machine uses a programming language predominantly called Solidity, and that's what it's based on. I'm not going to go too much in the technicals, but Algo's smart contracts are more based on tokenization and issuing of assets onto the Algorand blockchain. So it is different. They're not necessarily one's better than the other. They're just for different use cases. Solidity, without going too much into it, it's being used mostly for DeFi right now. And Algos is specifically used for like tokenization and issuing assets on the Algo blockchain to settle there, where that's not really the case for Ethereum. That's not what the Ethereum virtual machine was really built for. So that's why, for example, we'll see, since the Ethereum virtual machine isn't used on Algorand, they have their own smart contracts. We'll see Algo as possibly one of the F assets that come over to the Flare network so that Algo token could then be used in Ethereum virtual machine applications. So these applications can only really use one smart contracting language at the moment, but it's not to say that in the future, we can't see these applications use multiple smart contracts. So we're just limited by the technology at the moment, but in the future, I think it will expand to where they'll be interoperable, even between smart contracting languages. But that's a little ways down the road, but it's coming. So what we have now isn't always set in stone. It's like, okay, there's that Ethereum virtual machine and there's Algo, and they're like, they never could interact with each other. So I don't want to say they'll never be able to, but for right now, the applications have to be separate. So that's why, was it Kinetic Capital or was it Borderless that proposed Algo?
Borderless.
So
Borderless.
Borderless was one of the VCs that invested in both Algo and in Flare Networks, and they're proposing to bring over Algo token to the Flare network as a new F asset. And that's an interesting one. It's because Algo does have smart contracts and they have their own specialty ones for issuing Algo assets on Algorand. And it's for also CBDCs and that specific use case. Solidity is a little more complicated. The developers who see, I'm not a developer, so I'm not going to get too much into the technicals of the smart contracts, but it's more once they learn Solidity, they really like it. And there's a lot of Ethereum developers right now. There's thousands and thousands. So that's why to port these projects over to Flare, Flare's going to have the Ethereum virtual machine. So it's already right there. A lot of these other networks came out with their own smart contract languages, and now they have to get developers to come on there. And that's not easy to do. And Algorand's struggling with that issue now. So they're like, okay, let's make Algo token at least available to Ethereum virtual machine based applications. And that's why bringing it over to Flare would allow that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think with these different, we're gonna have different types of smart contract languages out there. And like you're saying with Algorand, like the one that hey they have set up may be really good for tokenization. So maybe that's what we see more of on Algorand versus other networks. Like we don't know exactly at this point, but having different types of languages that can be written in allow you to do different things. Maybe it's more efficient to do a certain type of project with one language versus another. So I think this just kind of goes back to the whole, there's not going to just be one smart contract network to rule them all. There's going to be, I'd say like a few to several at least, a lot of the big players that are out there now, and then others that are coming onto the scene, and they'll all offer certain things that are better than the other blockchains. But, I think having this ability to interoperate between them and, basically mirror value onto other blockchains so people don't have to sell out of the tokens that they own, but just utilize the value somewhere else is a really big thing. And with Flare Network, um, they have a very nice advantage, at least with this, where their state connector system, which connects the Flare network with all the other blockchains, allows them to do it in a way that doesn't require anything from the underlying blockchain they're connecting to. So maybe we see if, Flare gets traction with the minting of F assets, governance votes to add a bunch more on, that Flare will start propagating more assets onto other networks as well in order to, just enhance the interoperability throughout the space.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole point of the Flare network is to unlock value. So we just got to keep that in mind. I know that's the first thing. The first video I ever made on this channel was all about unlocking the financial energy, which is unlocking all this value that's tied up in nano ledgers or that's held on just the Litecoin blockchain or held on XLM. And it's doing absolutely nothing. It's just sitting there saying, I'm waiting for Moon. And that's not doing anything to help the network or help the community. And I know that's why many of us were here. We're waiting for Moon. But now the market and the whole industry is changing. These are not stocks. So we have to look at it. That's why the participation in the Flare network and the Spark token is designed. So just to recap, what are the three main components of the Spark token? And what is the utility and what's its use case? So its utility, when you first get it, it comes with this inbuilt yield. So you're able to earn yield at no risk in the same asset. So you delegate this detachable vote by wrapping it to W Flare, which means it basically is a smart contract, and you delegate it to a signal provider. You don't give up custody, and you're able to earn yield. The second use case is as collateral. So that's in the F asset system, 2.5 times the value of any F asset minted onto Flare network needs to be backed by Spark. Now, the agents and the regulated entities who act as agents will take care of that. CeFi providers will collect Spark from retailers to lock up in there. And then the third use case really for Spark token is the governance vote. So, and that adds a premium to it because you're able to vote in any type of proposal, any type of governance on the network. Everyone who has one token is one vote. So everyone is equal in that sense. So that's why those are the three utilities of really the Spark token, just so everyone knows. So really it's the Spark coin because it's the layer one of the network. So I know I call it token all the time. I probably should call it coin because that means layer one. Everything else is a DApp token or an issued asset like YFlare or Gala are issued assets on the network. Like Y Hack or Y Casino Coin are going to be considered wrapped assets, which are semi-trustless. And then you're going to have your F assets, which are trustless assets issued onto the Flare network through the F asset system, which is a Spark dependent application. And those will come with inbuilt yield as well. And they'll earn you daily Spark.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also with the nature of the like native coin, I guess we'll say, of Spark, is that it's being used to transact on centralized exchanges, so trading there as well as gas fees. So people that are participating in delegating their votes to the FTSO are not going to be able to sell their tokens more than likely as easily if they have them wrapped on exchanges. So that'll take some just like general pressure you would see as far as like the bid and ask spread um, on centralized exchanges. That'll kind of bring that down a little bit. I don't know what the exact amount would be or anything like that, but just the nature of having to wrap and unwrap will add a little barrier between that. However, you will be able to swap on the Flare Finance liquidity pools while it's like wrap Spark. So
Yep.
those are
Yeah. No,
important to note. Yeah.
I think that will have an impact. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, is the supply going to release? It's going to bring sell pressure. But I heard nobody 2-3 weeks ago talking about, oh, but all that Spark that's delegated to the signal providers can't be traded. So this is what I was trying to say is like people who talk about Flare Network, but then don't fully understand the Flare Network. And we had a lot of that a few weeks ago. And luckily we moved past that because the loud voices are just loud voices.
And they don't want to talk about it anymore.
And they don't want to talk about it because they didn't really understand it to begin with. They just were so focused on supply, supply, supply. And really, that's not the mechanism design that allows you to basically earn yield at no risk. You can't put it on a sell order on an exchange while simultaneously delegating your vote. So it's one or the other. So once you give that up, now you're giving up that yield to sell. So you either got to be making some swing trade or you just sit there and earn yield. So more people, once they realize, oh, I'm going to just earn compounding yield, or am I going to sit there and stare at the price all day and wait till it hits this number and a swing trade and back? Less people are going to do that because you're going to wind up losing more so. If you just sit there and earn compounding yield, it's going to be better off for you. And also then the F asset system, as F assets are minted, it locks up more and more Spark. So you have these two forces creating upward pressure on the market, even as though that's inflation rewarding people, but you're transferring value to those who are good participants in the network instead of just transferring value onto the market. Okay, so there's a big difference there. And I saw some people compare it to like Jed selling, and it was like the biggest joke I ever saw. I don't even want to go there with that.
Yeah, it's a totally different network with the mechanism design, and like that's a very important term that I think it's starting to reach more mainstream crypto slowly. I still don't see a lot of people talk about it, but it's like, how is this system set up to basically guide user decisions by providing incentives? Obviously, everybody isn't going to act rationally at all points in time. I think, from the past few years, everybody's realized markets can be extremely irrational and volatile. I don't really think the, economic model or like theory around, all markets are rational is maybe the most accurate depiction anymore. But for the most part, you can only do so much when you're trying to guide these networks and getting them up and running. And a lot of it is trying to get value and liquidity input to the system in the early days and quickly. And that's what's being done with the reward system here. So that's part of the entire mechanism design. And then we have the tokenomics of the Spark token, which is, locking it up constantly if people are going to be minting F assets. So, I mean, as far as if we talk about price in the future, Mickey, I think a lot of that price is going to be highly, highly dependent on if people are minting F assets or not, because you're not going to
Yes.
have that just general upward pressure with demand on the Spark token and also lowering the supply as you lock more up. So it's going to have to outpace the distribution of the token, I would think, to, see constant moves up, but we'll have to see.
Exactly. But those people who are receiving those rewards constantly every day from the FTSO's inflation mechanism are gaining more value. So even if the actual Spark price stays the same, somebody who has held Spark over those months has accumulated that much more Spark. Plus, they receive their 3% a month distribution. So they have a lot more value than maybe just where the Spark price has gone in the last 2 months. And also, the whole idea of scarcity, I think, is way overrated. And people say that, oh, about Bitcoin. Meanwhile, $2.5 billion dollars in Bitcoin are dumped on the market every month from miners. And the miners have zero participation in the network. They don't do anything but secure the network. But they get paid all this Bitcoin, it just gets dumped back on the market. Now, the way Flare's inflation works is it goes to those who are participating. So everyone who's participating in FTSO earns Spark, but they're not going to just turn around and dump it on the market, because they could turn around and delegate more and then earn more Spark. So they're going to continue in that cycle, and it actually auto delegates. So everyone who starts out with the delegation, it'll auto delegate the new Spark that you receive from the Flare Time Series Oracle. And you receive those directly from the Flare Time Series Oracle. So you don't have to trust the signal provider to distribute it to you. It's a no trust, it's trustless. So you just receive it directly from the Flare Time Series Oracle to your wallet, which is, I think, pretty powerful in a design, because you're keeping it in that decentralized, trustless nature. And signal providers don't have to be money service providers, where a lot of validators on proof of stake networks, they're going to get hit with regulations. They're going to have to be money service providers or crypto custodians. And what that does is it just centralizes the network more so. And I think where Flare is not going to use value to do that, will always be more decentralized at its heart. And it will have a better governance model to it. So governance and decentralization have to go together. You can't have just one.
Yep. And so I got a question from JJ Bryant here, which is one of the topics we wanted to touch on. So can you expand on the Probity DAO LLC? What's the purpose? When will they choose participants? So I'll start off. Essentially, the Trustline team is looking to put together a LLC that is representing the DAO. Right now, they have an open mailing list that you can join and put your information in to be contacted about it in the future. Check out the Probity DAO Twitter page for that. And you can sign up for that and just get more information. But essentially, I guess the reason Matt is doing this, or the Trustline team is implementing this, is because they're just, in case of a DeFi crackdown, they would be able to distribute platform fees. So that's going to be like Spark, FXRP, or other collateral assets that are added in. They'll be able to distribute them back to people that are DAO members in that LLC. So you like would have a whitelisted address. You would be known by the LLC, so you'd have your identity known. There also is no like prerequisites for certain countries that you have to be in. It's international friendly. Um, we'll see how that goes. They're looking to get as many people as they possibly can in it, but it's kind of in its early stage, and I think we need to get more information around it. It is an interesting concept, but I do want to see how it evolves more. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's like jumping the gun or not, but we'll just have to see. And Mickey, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, no, I think the whole DAO concept is really fascinating, because these these are like the new banks. I want to say in the future they're going to be based off of these DAOs. Maybe not right away. We're going to see fintechs and the unbundling, like Brian Brooks has described, but ultimately, excuse me, these DAOs will probably take over the roles of banks in the future, because they're going to be corporations. So that means there's liability and accountability. Now, one thing that was interesting, since there maybe is only 100 governor seats, each governor seat could be an LLC, right? And then there could be 99. Well, there were 99 seats, and then each seat could represent 99 too, right?
Yes. So
Possibly.
basically he's looking to set up like one LLC as an umbrella and that have other LLCs under it, since only 99 members can be a part of a single LLC. But then if you make one of the members another LLC, the idea is that, you can exponentiate the
Mm-hmm.
membership that way, but that's something they're still looking into. But yeah, so like the benefit of joining it is that you can earn the fees collected on the platform, whether it's from the liquidity pools they're going to be offering, or any fees associated with participating in like the collateral system, borrowing and lending Ore. So that'll be interesting. And they also are supposed to have a white paper coming out here, hopefully this month. We'll see, maybe
Hmm.
next month. But I think we still have like a lot of questions on how exactly outside of just the Ore system, like the Probity Bank Vault, like what else and how that is going to interact. And, what other kind of yield opportunities are there? Because the way the like what is it, the Probity vault system is set up, like the yield is pretty low and it doesn't look as lucrative compared to Flare Finance in the beginning. So I'm definitely curious to get more information around that and if there's going to be other opportunities to earn yield, like with the assets you're earning while you're collateralizing FXRP or Spark to mint Ore.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, this isn't 100% retail focused, just so everyone knows here. These 100 seats, the question was asked, how do they choose? We don't know yet. So I
Yeah.
don't have the answer on how that necessarily is chosen. But one thing I could say is if you're thinking of Probity Vault like a decentralized crypto bank, right? It lends and borrows with deposits, and you could earn revenue streams out of that. I would think that corporates would fit the role perfectly as some of these governors because that's who uses banks, corporations. So corporates would kind of fit in here. So I'm not saying this is going to be all retail. We don't know what it's going to take to be one of the 100 governors. I mean, right now you could just sign up. All the registration is your country and your email. So that's it. And we'll see with the white paper what that actually entails. Let me just throw out here so everyone understands how Trustline works, which is going to be called Stable Pay. There's going to be a mobile app that's going to be separate from the Probity Vault. So the Probity Vault or Probity DAO is going to be like a decentralized application interface, kind of how Flare Finance was. There's an interface. So if you join the Probity beta, you see there's an interface that allows you to deposit FXRP and you could borrow or mint RA stablecoin. That's all going to be completely decentralized. But the Trustline app, or I don't know if they call it the Stable Pay app, is going to have your real identity and it's going to allow you to link a fiat on and off ramp. So I think that's really cool for many of us who have forced right now to use all these exchanges to get fiat on and off. Now, if we get an actual mobile app that allows us to connect to our bank account where we could fiat on and off, that's awesome. I think many of us are looking for that. That's definitely something I'm looking for. If I don't got to use Coinbase or Bitstamp, I'd rather use an app just dedicated like that. So that's something we could see that their long-term vision is, and that's kind of separate from Probity Vault, but it also will be integrated with Probity.
Awesome. That was a great rundown, Mickey. And I just brought up on the screen our diagram of how the Probity Vault system works. Just kind of as a refresher on top of that. Excuse me. Basically, you as a supplier will put collateral into one of the Vault smart contracts, which in turn communicates to the Treasury contract to mint the corresponding amount of Ore based on the collateral ratio that you're looking to do. For FXRP, it's a minimum of 1.5 times collateral. Spark is like set at 4.5 times right now, which to me is just, I mean, that seems unusable. Personally, but at that rate, it's just super high. And then the treasury also will store any Ore reserves in the meantime. And then when somebody else comes through and they would like to get a loan, basically there's an adjustable rate that's set depending on the supply of Ore minted and then how much is already issued out. So if more Ore has been issued out, than they have in supply, then obviously it's going to make the rate go up because the demand would be higher. But this person that's getting a loan would basically post collateral in the same manner that the supplier is. And that's in case they miss a loan payment. It will just be deducted out of your collateral that you have posted. So that's generally like how the whole system works. If you want to close back, you just got to pay back the whole, or close out, you got to pay back the whole principal on the loan. And since it is variable, there may be certain times when you want to close out the loan versus others, as well as certain times when you want to borrow versus others. Like higher demand, it may not be the best time to borrow versus doing it when not as many people are trying to borrow. So, I mean, just like buying assets as well, it's like, preferably you buy them when other people don't want to buy them and then sell them when other people want to buy them. So kind of a similar setup, but just as in terms of getting a loan. But let's go. I'm gonna hop back into the chat here and see if we got any other questions, Mickey. So let's see. Oh, of course, it's buffering. Fun stuff. um, oh yeah, Mickey. Oh, okay, here's one. So Adam Cobb asked, staking YFIN in the governance pool earns 5 to 35% APY per year in what? And Adam, that is going to be a plethora of assets, and it's basically all the assets that get collected as fees within the network. So it could be any of the F assets, it could be YFIN, YFlare, YUSD, it could be wrapped assets like Ethereum, Luna or Binance, the Binance coin, or it could be, XDC or PAC or whatever. So they're going to be releasing more information on it. And that is all coming from what is now called Kakibo, formerly known as the APY Cloud. A lot of the different products, if not all of them, I just can't remember for sure. They basically, the Kakibo protocol will collect a portion of the fees from all the different protocols on the networks and then hold them in reserves. And then it disperses that to the governance staking pool. So,
Yes, and if there's not enough collected in those fees, the
we'll,
Kakibo holds 40 million reserve of Y Flare. So 40 million Y Flare being airdropped, 40 million Y Flare are being put in the reserve for the basically Kakibo to distribute out as yield. So there's always going to be yield there. That's why it's a minimum of 5 to 35%. And if it goes over that 35%, then there's like boosted distribution. So it's meant to go over that 35%. And that's the only way you'll be able to participate in governance is if you stake in there. So once you earn YFIN or YFlare, you just stake it in there and you earn all these different tokens, or you earn YFlare.
yeah, and your assets will appreciate and depreciate as the price moves while you're in that pool. So there's no kind of like, missing out on possible value gain or loss there. Um,
Yes, that's a
it,
good thing. Good
yeah,
point. Because the only one is the liquidity pools that serve impermanent loss. Any of these vaults or these loans, if you put collateral in, you're in it with the capital appreciation or depreciation. It's only the liquidity pools that have impermanent loss right now in protocols. We don't know if there'll be new protocols that come out that do different things that have impermanent loss. But as of right now, right, Patty, it's only liquidity pools that have impermanent loss possibility, which
the liquidity pools. Sorry, is that what you said?
yes, that's the only ones that have
Yes.
technically impermanent loss, which is, we just did, Patty just did a great video on it. If you haven't seen it, check out his video on impermanent loss. It was really good. It breaks it down well because it's not an easy topic to understand when you first just read the definition. It doesn't usually click right away. It didn't with me. It took some time to really understand how it all works.
Yeah, and it's like with impermanent loss, the whole thing occurs because we're using a automated market maker, which is the algorithm that underpins a liquidity pool. And that automated market maker doesn't determine price like you would have on a normal order book exchange where you have bid and ask spread. It's more about token volume. So that means basically like if you have one Ethereum and 400 USDT in a pool, well, then that Ethereum is worth $400. But if on all the other exchanges it's trading at 420, that means people will start coming in and buying Ethereum with the USDT from that liquidity pool, which will start removing Ethereum out of the liquidity pool and increasing the amount of USDT there until those prices hit an equilibrium and arbitrage is no longer needed. So, that's kind of like the whole reason it's there. These pools have to rebalance to maintain their 50-50 spread in value. And that's where the impermanent loss comes from. So that's just something to take into account. And basically, what you'll end up doing whenever you're in a liquidity pool, you'll be looking at the value proposition between how many fees I can earn from being in this liquidity pool. And then also, what other incentives am I getting? So, in the case of Flare X, we're going to be getting the incentive of being able to stake our LP tokens in the Flare farm pool and earn YFIN on top of the fees. And then if you're using like Spark or an F asset in there, you also have like the general daily rewards that come with those, either through the FTSO or the rewards pools. So you could add that into the equation as well. Also, something important to note, because I did get some comments from people around this. So basically, like if you have to sell, let's say you're going to go into an FXRP USD pool and you're going to put $10,000 of each, but you only have $20,000 of FXRP and you have no stable coin, you would have to obviously source that stable coin somehow. So if you sell FXRP into it, that may be something you want to take into account as missed price appreciation if it goes up. However, the classical and permanent loss scenario doesn't, or sorry, calculation doesn't take that into account. And I don't really know how to change it to do that. So it's just something you should keep in your mind if that's how you're going to be sourcing the stable coin if you go into a pool that's like a crypto to a stable coin.
Well, you could also use tools like loans
Yes,
to put
exactly.
your F. This is what Patty was kind of saying a little before, was using, well, in yesterday's video, was using FXRP and then borrowing against it just to get that stable coin. So then you don't have to sacrifice using any of your actual like original stack of FXRP, and you don't have to lose any. You borrow against it, borrow some stable coin, and then go into the liquidity pool. You don't want to really go, not financial advice, and none of the things we're saying is financial advice, no tax advice, no nothing, just for educational purposes only. You don't want to go 100% really in anything. So these are just tools. All these DeFi protocols are tools. So you don't want to think like extremes, 100% all in on this or 100% all in this. You want to take a little pieces of each and divide your portfolio up whatever feels comfortable for you, and especially if XRP's value increases as we expect it to with this case settling up soon, you'll have more value then to go around. So taking 2% of your portfolio at $10 is a big difference than 2% maybe right now. So those are the things that are going to be out there, and we have to look to the future as we have more of this value. It's not just moon and Lambos and popping bottles. It's like, well, how do we use this value the best way to build like generational wealth? And that's what it is, creating more revenue streams. And the liquidity pools allow that, because now you're hedging the risk against depreciation, because we know all these markets pull back. So when these markets are pulling back, you're able to still earn revenue and earn yield. And you actually, if the market goes down, you could actually gain XRP out of this too, out of liquidity pools. So they're a tool to really use along the way in our journey,
Yeah, absolutely. And then,
which
oh,
I
go ahead.
think the journey is going to be a long journey. Like, I'm not here for
Yes,
just
yeah.
1-2 years and, oh my God, $10, and then I'm exit planning out. So I think even Crypto Siege said that one thing when we did those 20 voices on Crypto Eddie's channel. He said something that, really stuck with me. And it's what I thought too, is like, well, we have to rethink our exit plans here. Are we really exiting from a market that's going to continue to keep growing? Yes, we want to take profits, but this isn't just going to be all speculation forever. And even everyone says, well, when utility kicks in, well, this is utility right here. Okay, these DeFi protocols are utility. You're putting your assets to work and you're utilizing them to gain more yield. So the utility is here. We just can't count on Ripple to do all the utility. And I think that's one thing we thought for a while, was it just, oh, Ripple's going to bring all the utility. And that's not the case. Now Flare's bringing the utility and we could use it and we could put our assets to work. So just literally having FXRP on Flare is utility. You're earning Spark. So you're utilizing your asset XRP to earn yield. So that is utility, just so everyone's clear with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw what happened with Ethereum. Like, it's probably one of the most used blockchains. And, you can go into the fact that, yeah, the gas fees got really high and, transactions slowing down and stuff like that. But I mean, I guess it's better than having really cheap fees and low gas fees and transaction times if your network's not being used. So, it's like where is the retail holders able to participate right now, because the businesses aren't here yet, and it just seems like they need more like clearance from the governments and everything like that for us to see more of a pouring over into like DeFi and the blockchain space. It's slowly happening, but that means there's opportunity for us now. And my whole thing is like, I was on the boat like originally when I first got in, like, oh, okay, this thing operates like a stock and, it just goes up in price and that's how I make money, or I lose money if it goes down. Well, now I can take things into my own hands and put my money to work which I mean, if you listen to like the people that, make the most money in the world, it's because they put their money to work and it's not just sitting idle. So having the ability to earn yield and then also still being exposed to long-term price appreciation, I think is just really powerful. And luckily it's coming to, one of the assets that I held. So
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. We get a chance to do all this before all the institutions, before all the corporates, before all the commercial banks and fintechs come in. We're here first at the forefront of this. So if Flare Network is a huge success in a couple of years from now, and you got YFin early and you got Spark early, I mean, those are things that were just like handed to you by Flare and Spark. So, I mean, they're out there, and then you could create different revenue streams before they all come in, and they're going to come in. So, if Flare Finance and Trustline and Probity are going to have KYC AML, it's going to attract institutional and enterprise money because they're like, oh, that's KYC compliant. That's all it has to be, basically. So we're in at a really good time right now. And it's nice that the institutions haven't come so fast because it gives us the opportunity before them, which is very rare. And that's what crypto was kind of started on. Just the speculative, we were first, and now we're first on the utility too. So how can you beat that
yep,
as an
exactly.
opportunity?
Yeah, and, I saw Darren Moore's in the chat, but he brought up an interesting point as, like, a strategy you can utilize, and he says you can exit your coin with stable coins and still utilize DeFi and take out the risk of a dropping market. So, yeah, like, let's say the SEC case clears up, and in the course of a month or 2, the XRP price goes to $10, without much resistance. Well, generally, we see these assets have pullbacks, so, like, if you want to get into the business of, doing that, moving in and out of your coins and doing a little trading, you can still utilize stable coins and DeFi, whether that's, you could provide insurance through the Flare Mutual platform. You could provide collateral or like your assets to be loaned out, like your stable coins, or there could be stable coin to stable coin liquidity pools. So the nice thing about DeFi really for me is there's a lot of flexibility, and just a lot of different things you can do, and there's still a lot more to be added on.
I agree. That's a great point Darren brought up there. Using the stable coins in times when the market is not going up or it's going sideways, just building up these different yield streams to set yourself up long term for the market, because eventually then it will go back up. So we see the market patterns from many of us being in the markets for 2, 3, some of you 4 years, see the market trends here, and you know when to utilize. Okay, things are probably going to go sideways for a while. All right, now I could get into these stable coins, or the market's going to go down, and now I could just earn this yield stream while the market's going down. At least you're earning something. You're not just sitting there staring at the price going down and your portfolio bleeding out. You just have revenue streams coming in, and eventually the capital appreciation is going to come. I think we all could kind of safely say that the case is probably going to settle and the XRP's price is probably going to go up. So using that value, now's the time to think about, how am I going to use that value to the best ability to set myself up for the future, and not just maybe just exiting out or just sitting there and doing nothing and watching it come back down.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, I mean, even if you do, like, let's say we have a crypto to crypto pool that is FXRP or Spark, and we get to a point where, you think there's going to be, maybe a few months, maybe to a year, just general downturn in the market. You can stay in those two assets and get in a liquidity pool if you believe they're going to get back to the same price level that they were at previously. And while your value may be decreasing in the pool some as the price in those assets decreases, when the value starts increasing again, your value will start going back to what you originally put in there. So you would have been earning fees those whole times. Obviously, selling them out to a stable coin is probably going to hold your value a little better, but you may not want to sell out to a stable coin. So, just because you have impermanent loss occurring on the upside or the downside, as the price returns back to the area that you entered, um, then you start getting back to the original value you had, plus all those fees you've accumulated the whole time. So it's not like you see, oh, dang, the price just, dropped 50% and I suffered some impermanent loss. Well, if you think the price is going to go back up and it does, then you start lessening the impermanent loss. So that's like the big thing. It's not permanent, it's just on paper until you exit. That's when it is realized. And that's just an opportunity cost. It's not like a traditional financial risk. It's just the difference between me choosing to either hold these two assets or me choosing to enter them into a liquidity pool that I'm staking in. And, what was the better move? That's basically all it is. So,
hmm
oh,
And usually
yeah, go
there's
ahead.
less impermanent loss when the two assets are correlated.
Yes. Yeah.
So, for example, right in the beginning with
Positively
Flare,
correlated. So
positively
important. Yeah.
correlated.
Important
Yes,
distinction.
positively. You're right. They're positively correlated. There's less impermanent loss, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, with Flare Finance, the first pools are going to be matched to all to YUSD. But in the future, as governance of Flare Finance adds more pools, you might see a Spark FXRP pool, which I think Patty and I were talking. That's going to be probably a really high volume pool, and those assets, XRP and Spark, are probably going to be correlated a little bit more than any of the other assets, and that will be a pool that I think will be in high demand. And you could put in your FXRP and Spark, and if they move up together in price, then you get the capital appreciation with that. So there won't be as much impermanent loss with those two.
Yep. Absolutely. And
But that
Mickey. Oh,
won't
yeah.
be that won't be happening at launch. So everyone knows, like, it will be just YUSD pools. So, and then it
Yeah,
will
we have to
change from
vote
there.
on that too.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that's important to
Yeah.
remember. But
Wow, it's 4 o'clock
we're
already.
an hour in. You ready to wrap up?
Yep. Let's wrap it up.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for joining in today. This is the DeFi Standard. I'm Patty XRP,
I'm Mickey B. Fresh.
and we are out. See you guys.